Shall we start then, like talking about what is specifics of Thomas More's understanding of the app and the way it has been reported by the Turkish National Intelligence Unit? Because I think it is far easy to understand, like rather than the legal aspect of the issue. As an expert, what did he found interesting about the app and the National Intelligence Unit's report on the app? And the way they are using it as a definitive checklist of whether someone is a Gulenist or not.
First of all, Thomas More underlines one major fact. The author of the MIT report is unknown to the court, to the writers of this report also. It's unknown to the public. In fact, the methodology used by the MIT experts while preparing the MIT report is also unknown. It is not made public. So the first criticism that comes from Thomas More is this: you cannot present a report by an intelligence agency to a courthouse as an evidence without giving the name of the experts that prepared the report, because the accused people should have the right to actually counter the arguments of the authors. We don't know who wrote this. We don't know whether they were really experts on this issue. We don't know whether they are accountable of what they have written or not. For example, Thomas More adds a text to a declaration to his own report and says, I am this person, I am here, this is my contact information. If any courthouse invites me and asks me questions about my observation, I am accountable about my observations, and I'm ready to come and actually answer any kind of question. This should be, he says, the style a witness report should be prepared. An expert witness should be prepared. And MIT report, by and large, doesn't fit into the overall description of what is an expert witness that is presented to a courthouse. So methodologically, he says, any courthouse anywhere in the world cannot use this MIT report as an evidence. The second issue is internal inconsistencies, and Thomas More deals with two basic inconsistencies in the MIT report. One is, it's a technical issue, but the MIT report on the one hand claims that by way of using a firewall and blocking people from Turkey who didn't use a VPN server, the programmer wanted to prevent anybody from Turkey to use the app, forced them to use VPN. Well, using VPN does mean that actually the IP addresses of the users are not known to the server in Lithuania. They are not known to the administrator of the Bylock program, and they cannot be known to the Turkish intelligence agency unless they have taken the same information from the VPN servers. And the VPN servers are universal servers, mainly in Western countries. The MIT report mentions nothing about the VPN servers.
If the Bylock users and mainly Gulenist Bylock users are asked, according to the report, to use VPN to block their IPs, then by this definition, National Intelligence Unit can't claim that the identified IP users are Gulenists. That's identified IP users are not Gulenists because they didn't use VPN, or the report is saying either of its claims wrong.
Perfect.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Thomas More says. It says either you have detected wrong IP addresses, or you shouldn't be able to detect any IP address because those IP addresses are unknown to the servers in Lithuania, even if MIT has actually managed to infiltrate into the building of the servers in Lithuania and took the control of the disks that had 109 gigabytes of information. There you won't find the IP addresses because the administrator force people to use VPN. On the other hand, the MIT report itself says that we have managed to decipher the IP addresses of 165,000 users in Turkey. Thomas More says this is impossible. You are either doing wrong IP detection, or you are altogether misleading the courthouse. Maybe you have a list of 165,000 people you prepared, and you claim they used Bylock, but actually, digitally saying, you cannot reach to that conclusion from there. Of course, this observation of Thomas More is going to reach to Clack's report, and Clack is going to say, okay, this means that the MIT has arbitrarily defined who is a Bylock user. And this, in the end, reaches to the conclusion that the detentions and arrests in Turkey on basis of Bylock usage is arbitrary detention.
So they are effectively a cover-up evidence in here. You know, like they already decided who is Gulenist in their minds, and they're saying these people also used. So that explains the famous fact that someone who was using an old Nokia phone has been arrested on the basis of using Bylock. So it wasn't actually, in a way, so strange, because they just assigned an IP number and they wanted to arrest him, and they said he used Bylock, although it was impossible. So what else? What else the report says?
Thomas More deals with a second contradiction that the MIT report has about SSL certificate. The MIT report states that the fact that the coder of the Bylock program used self-signed SSL certificate instead of downloading an internationally renowned company's SSL certificate was in order to control the flux of information, and so that those SSL certificate giving companies will not be able to reach to the information. Thomas More says this is at the best a stupid assertion, because in fact SSL certifiers cannot reach the information. The information does not go to them. So there is only one reason why you use a self-signed certificate. It is cheaper. SSL certificates cost a lot of money, so there is only one explanation. Other than that, it doesn't actually make the program more secure. It doesn't keep it to you only. So in this sense, Thomas More says either the people who prepared the MIT report were not really experts of IT issues, or they were just trying to mislead the courthouse, and he says probably the second. This is important. A third issue that Thomas More deals with is the claim by the MIT report that the fact that the servers of Bylock were in the country Lithuania was also trying to make it more secretive. Whereas Thomas More says, well, the best place to station a secretive server would be United States or a Scandinavian country. The only reason that somebody hires a server in Lithuania is because it is cheaper. And in fact, Thomas More claims that the fact that the server was only in one single country made it more, I can say, he says, weaker by means of secrecy and security. And he criticizes the Bylock coder for using only one country as the server. And in fact, this is precisely what happened, he says. If MIT, as it claimed, managed to infiltrate into the building in Lithuania, it is only because there was only one server. Instead of using one server, the code writer could have used several countries, several servers, so that when infiltrated in one of them, the agency wouldn't be able to reach the totality of the information. So in that sense, Thomas More says this is not an amazingly, military standard, secretive, encrypted communication program. This is, by and large, a simple encrypted communication program that you can find out there.
So Thomas More says, in my understanding, if the maker of the Bylock wanted it more secretive and more secure, he wouldn't have put all the eggs into the same basket. There is a an exact opposite of it. If we were to take the National Intelligence Unit's report, it was made easy for if they ever hacked or infiltrated to those servers.
Precisely. And he continues actually to challenge also the claim by the MIT that the programmer of the Bylock has intentionally limited and tightly controlled the use of Bylock to ensure that the access was limited only to the members of the Gülenist organization. Well, MIT, by means of claiming that use of Bylock was exclusive to the members of the Gülen movement, was actually trying to assert that anybody who downloaded and used Bylock was a Gülenist. Thomas Moore says, well, this is not acceptable given the fact that this application was available to download publicly to people in Google Play Store, Apple Store, and even after then in other APK websites where you can download free of charge and so on. So it was publicly available. It was downloaded in 60 different countries. In all those 60 countries, it was one of the top 1,000 apps used. In 41 countries, it was one of the top 500 apps used. In 13 countries, it was one of the top 100 apps used. And overall, all along its existence, about 600,000 people downloaded Bylock. This actually makes the claim that these were all Gülenists or members of a terrorist organization a ridiculous claim, he says.
In comparison to where National Intelligence Agency claims that it's 165,000 of Gülenists that they have. So that makes less than a quarter of the entire Bylock users if the claims